I've just been edging for a podcast session, so now here we are. I'm very excited.
So much pent-up energy you have right now.
It's a lot of energy. I've been holed in my room since 8:30, just like did my final, then I went straight to like what we're gonna talk about today. Did a little bit of like looking into what we're doing, and then here we are.
Yeah, I didn't really realize how much I missed like researching these topics and making outlines and everything. It's a good way to spend my day, I think. So I'm happy to be back for sure. How many espressos did you have today?
Well, I woke up, left my friend's house, and then I had two double espressos, and then I sat in my chair, and I was just kind of like, I needed a little bit more, so I had an extra double espresso. So three double espressos, probably six in total. Just quick maths.
That's so obscene. I had a second coffee at 12 o'clock today, which is really unusual for me. But that's
Uh-oh. You're gonna be up
pales
forever.
pales in comparison to your
My caffeine
impressive
intake.
feat. Exactly. It's extreme, but you have a lot to do, so I understand.
Ayo.
Um, oh, I totally forget where I was going. I had a really good thought that I wanted to share with you.
You had a good
Uh,
thought?
I
Think,
had a,
think.
oh, I don't.
Well,
Oh, yeah, yeah. So you got my text. My brother was listening to the podcast, and he was actually so genuinely impressed with your podcasting voice. He's like, you have a or he's like, Z's got a radio voice, and I'm really jealous because I know I sound muffled and not great, but yeah, I told you right from the beginning, you sound great on recording.
well, I appreciate it, and it's so weird because I'm a little bit nasally, so I would have never thought I would have had like the voice for this, but it's a gift, really. So it's just how
No,
God created me.
you sound really good, and I know that I don't have the most feminine voice, so I wasn't super pumped on putting it down on tape, but it is what it is. I could probably make myself sound more feminine. We knew a girl in high school who did that. Who do you remember her? She
Wait.
had Hilton. She had the most
Oh.
like a high pitched voice when she wanted to, but when she was back in the house with us, she would go so deep. So I could channel some of her and do a bit of that just for the sake of the recording.
You know what? It
Um,
makes you more relatable with our male listeners. So,
Shut up.
I think that's kind of what we're looking for. So we're just hitting all the bases here,
Yeah, yeah,
and
okay.
and then I take in the female listeners because like I'm great to listen to. So
Yeah,
there we
that's
go.
fair.
We're
There we go.
covered. We're fine.
We're covered. Speaking of covering, we have a lot to do today since we're gonna do two podcasts in a row. It's gonna be the marathon. So should we just get into it here?
Uh, yeah. Let's just start with bad news.
The bad news?
Let's just start
Well,
with the bad news.
yeah, let's lead with that because we had some of the saddest, baddest news around this past week, in that Joe Burrow is out for the season and is looking at a 9 to 12 month recovery for a torn ACL and MCL. Were you watching that live? Did you see that?
Yeah, I was on kind of the red zone there, so I was kind of in between games, and then it obviously cuts from the Octobox, or they have like 8 boxes of the games, and they're like, oh no, like something really bad has happened in the Cincinnati game. Like, let's go in there, and it's like Joe Burrow's on the ground, and you're like, ah, no, because
Not another one, yeah.
this kid is like going to be. Well, I mean, he was on pace to being one of the, having an amazing rookie career.
Oh,
And
for sure.
now here we are. ACL, MCL, 9 to 12 months.
9 to 12 months recovery, and it's just, you see these great prospects going to these brutal teams and just having terrible coverage all season, and then this is the outcome. It's really heartbreaking. He had the potential for this year. He was, I mean, definitely carrying that team from what it seemed. But I just thought we would go over some of the impressive features about Joe Burrow. I see you've added some notes in here. Do you want to get into some of that before we go into his background?
Yeah, well, I mean, just as far as what I've kind of looked into, because like, we have a lot of players that get injured. It's just a part of sport and whatnot. Um, and actually, I found something kind of interesting. You have a lot more players that maybe before 2005, if they got it, this is kind of when I made it's a general timeline I found, but in the 2005 and before, if you got really injured or badly injured, like your career was like done. The chances of anybody coming back from a severe injury like that was slim to none. But because of medical technology and how everything's just progressed, um, for recovery, you have all these players coming back. So one of those people was like Adrian Peterson. He had a MCL ACL injury. He was off the field for 8 months, but like he comes back almost like as one of the best running backs in the league. He was 7 yards away from breaking the single season rushing record. Um, in 2005, Drew Brees came back after having a year off, and then obviously he's Drew Brees, so he's one of the most consistent quarterbacks in the entire league. Um, Gronkowski, I mean, he's got a laundry list
Of
of injuries.
accolades, yeah. Oh,
Oh, of
yeah,
injuries.
yeah.
He's
Oh,
got a
yeah.
ton of injuries.
Tight ends tend to be super injury prone, hey? We've seen that this
Yeah,
year.
he's a
So,
bionicle. He's got the big arm brace, knee
yeah.
brace. And he was out for an entire year. 2015 comes back, and he comes back to win a Super Bowl, which
Yeah.
he should have never won, but he did it anyway. So,
And what are your thoughts on him, on Joe Burrow? I mean, is it a good thing that this is happening early on in his career so that he's got plenty of time to bounce back? Like, if he were an older veteran quarterback, it would just kind of be game over. Do you think that in some ways I mean, now is as good of a time as ever, or is that just cruel to say? What are your thoughts on the timing?
no, well, I mean, obviously, it's going to be anytime anyone gets injured, it's bad timing, right? Like, you can go through your career and never get really that injured. I mean, Tom Brady's never been really, really poorly or badly injured, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's just been able to be a monster forever. So like I think it's not a bad thing to suggest, just because like yeah, injuries do happen, and just it sucks that it's the severity of it, and hopefully the Bengals can like acquire some pieces and like make Joe safer and playing with like a better O line, or you know what I mean,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
start
for
to
sure.
help build around that. But now it's just trying to salvage a lost season now for the Bengals.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, those were some interesting facts. I'm glad you looked into that for me, and all of our listeners. I'd like to get into just a bit of the background on Joe Burrow here. Do you have anything you'd like to conclude on that note?
No, not really. It's just one person that I mean, for those who are probably listening to this might know. And if you don't know, there's a player named Andrew Luck, and now he retired because of injuries, and this is recent. He played for the Indianapolis Colts, and he was like a unreal quarterback, and he just had a list of injuries, and he just said, "I have to retire," because sport became no longer fun for him. He was just injured all the time, and he just had to call it quits. And so I hope that's not where we end up going with Joe. And this is a huge injury to come back from. But if anything, so far players that come back from these injuries can sometimes have stronger knees. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and a year off to develop other aspects of his game. I mean, obviously, being able to play is the best practice, but
Hmm.
I mean, lots of players capitalize on this time off to come back stronger, or if not, just as good as they were. So hopefully,
Hmm.
that is the case for Joe. But just going into a bit of facts about Joe Burrow here, he was the first overall draft pick this past season. He's a Heisman Trophy winner, in good company there. Just following with our theme, he has 9-inch hands. Now I'm just
Mm.
fascinated about hand size.
Mm.
So that definitely isn't on the larger side of things, but it's pretty average, I would say, for a quarterback. So he was born in Iowa to a former football player and coach, and his whole family seems to be pretty athletic. Like, he had several relatives playing sports at the college level. I think his grandma was a collegiate basketball player, so he's got good genes, basically. his college season was kind of hailed as one of the best uh, college quarterback seasons ever. He had the third most passing yards of a collegiate quarterback ever. He finished his 2019-2020 season with 60 passing touchdowns, which broke the single season record ever by a QB in college. And he has just been a phenomenon on the circuit there. Did you have any like social media understanding of the hype for Joe Burrow last year? Like, was that on your radar at all?
It wasn't really on my radar, and again, like I was never really big. I'm starting to understand college more as I'm really getting into the whole football thing, and kind of the importance of it. And um, all I knew about Joe Burrow was that he's sexy, and everyone loves Joe Burrow.
Everyone loves him. A lot of
Yeah,
confidence in that guy. So yeah, he was a super impressive college player, and sometimes you see that pans out positively in the NFL, and sometimes that confidence can kind of implode on these guys. And it looks like he's carried it with a lot of class this season, so he was in a positive trajectory there. So it was really upsetting to see his rookie season cut short in this way. But everyone has really high hopes for Joe Burrow, and wishing him a decent recovery in 9 to 12 months. So,
yeah. I think also one thing I did know about him is that he was never. He really had to earn his spot because he was
oh yeah,
never really great. He was very average, from what I understand, like reading a little bit about him, and he was rejected by the Cornhuskers in Nebraska. I think he really wanted to play for them, and then later on down the line, he worked his butt off, and now he's number one.
yeah. There's something about that with quarterbacks who kind of have these chips on their shoulders, like. Aaron Rodgers, for instance, was playing at a junior college before he ended up playing at, what was it, Berkeley, UC Berkeley. I should
Hmm.
fact check that because I need to know these facts. But yeah, they have this complex that they need to prove themselves, and that never really goes away. Like when Aaron Rodgers wasn't taken first overall, he's spending his whole career proving to the 49ers that they made the wrong choice. And I mean, evidently they did, because he is a phenomenal quarterback. But yeah, that's just a little bit about Joe Burrow there. Yeah, that's about it. Do you have final thoughts on him?
No, I mean he's going to come back from his recovery, and I'm sure he'll be stronger than ever. And at that pace that he was going this season, like hopefully the Bengals, and I mean the Bengals have a great future ahead of them. Let's just implement that, and let's just see them get somewhere good finally.
Yeah, finally. Okay, moving on to Tom Brady refusing to shake Jared Goff's hand after the Monday night game. Not a whole lot to say on this. Apparently, he did the same thing to Nick Foles a little bit earlier this year. Um, I've just read in a few sources that he's just a bad sport about things. I know that with the Nick Foles incident, he did mention that, I was just taking COVID seriously, and I didn't, I respect Nick Foles. He's a great guy, but he's not like my close friend, so I didn't go to shake his hand. He hasn't come out and said anything about this Goff incident from what I've noticed. What have you heard about it?
Yeah, so like he wasn't questioned though. I don't think anyone has questioned him after the game about not shaking Goff's hands. And now, since like after the Foles incident, he was grilled on that. Now he wasn't grilled, but the internet is coming after him and being like, "Hey, buddy, like, what's going on? Like, why did you shake his hands?" And I think we just know it's Tom Brady. He's hyper competitive, and he lost in a super tight game. Um, and he's just bummed out. That's it. And he just didn't want to go shake his hands. I don't think it had anything to do with COVID. I think that's just a bit of a cop out
Oh, for sure.
for sure. And he's just a bad sport sometimes, and he just gets the worst of him. That's it.
Yeah, there you go. On a happier note, though, this game featured an all black officiating crew for the first time in NFL history. So, congratulations to the NFL for that. Were you able to tune in for that?
Yeah, I watched the entire pregame, and it was phenomenal to see. But they said something at the beginning of the game that I thought was really powerful, and I wanted to maybe just touch base a little bit about like why um like a diversity initiative is important amongst managers and coaches. It's just because they've come under scrutiny for that, right? Like when it comes to the management side of things, it's predominantly white, and just so people understand, when you break down the ethnicities of players, it's 70% of all players are African American, 20% are white, and then the last two are Latin and others. So now they're trying to go after the referees. They're going to try and go after the coaches. And from what I've read and understood from the NFL, it's that they're trying to. It's just the pool of which they're trying to hire from that just is predominantly white, and that's just what they're afflicted with right now. It's not like they're not doing it on purpose. It's just they can't. They don't have the pool of people they'd like to grab from. Um, Now, one thing that I was trying to find, I mentioned a quote from uh, Jerome Boger. So he was the head
Oh,
referee
we
of this entire
love Jerome
of the game.
Boger. Jerome
Yeah,
Boger's my favorite referee.
yeah, he's awesome, and he made a really good point at the beginning of the game, and I thought it would be something that would have been everywhere, but I actually had to go. I went. I'm not even kidding you. Maybe I went to like 15 different sites to try and look for it, and I ended up finding it at the beginning of the game, and Boger said, "quote." I'm looking forward to putting this history behind us. There is no distinction on the color of your skin and how you officiate a football game. So the next time this happens, hopefully they'll be able to look at us like seven officials out on the field working a game, end quote. And I thought that was like, and especially kind of like a time where everything is so sensitive right now, that was just a unifying message. I thought that was an important thing to hear a person of color say, and it was nowhere to be found.
Yeah, that's surprising. But maybe they just didn't want to make it look like a pat on the back to themselves. Like the way that Jerome kind of puts it there is like this shouldn't be a headline. It should just be a natural thing. No one should think twice about having entirely black officiating crew. It should just be accepted and not necessarily drawn attention to because it's normal, right? And that's kind of the sentiment that I got from Jerome's message there. But that being said, if they're making a historic move like this, they could, mention it once or twice, and then in the future when this takes place, it's just, par for the course. So, but yeah, that is bizarre that they didn't say anything.
Yeah, no one really mentioned it. And they said everywhere had Bruce Arians quote. I didn't write it down. I didn't. It just said like it's just a historic moment, something
Yeah,
that has been said 100 times. So no, I think that was an important thing to that everyone kind of left out, and that was kind of disappointing. But it was a great moment, and hopefully moving forward, we just see seven refs on the field, and we don't have to think about it.
exactly. Yeah, I think it's a really cool thing that they did, and I hope to see more of it. And also, not to lump them all together, but maybe one day we'll see all women out there, and that would just be a thing. But that's future excitement to come.
That how long do you think it's going to take for that to happen?
Oh my goodness. I can't even fathom. Think there are like two female refs in the whole league. So, yeah, who knows? But I do love seeing the female coaches out there. And I know players have made statements like, I don't think of her as a female coach. I just think of her as coach. And that's should be the way that it is. Like, if you have the skill set, if you have the acumen for it, then you're just coach, you're just ref, right? It's and I like that it's kind of going in that direction.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's based off of meritocracy. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're the best person for the job, you get it.
Are you snapping there? I hear
I
you.
snapped.
I know.
I'm passionate about meritocracy.
Meritocracy. I bet you are. You're I love that you snap to emphasize even on a podcast. Zoo's a snapper.
I'm a snapper.
Another interesting, unexpected game is when the Cowboys overtook the Vikings in a very tight game, 31-28. After the fact, it came out that coach Mike McCarthy was trying to inspire his team by smashing watermelons in order to emphasize certain objectives. So apparently he rolled out all these watermelons that had different objectives written on them, and he had like a full-on demolition style watermelon. He was smashing them, and it sounds kind of hokey to me, but apparently it really worked and it fired them up, and then they ended up winning. So that's that's fantastic. Did you look into that at all, Z?
Yeah, I did. I thought it was hilarious, and like you said, hokey for sure. But it's these little things that can kind of inspire and bring people together and give a team identity. For an example, probably one of my favorite examples outside of NFL, is the Florida Panthers in the NHL, and it was they lost a game in the playoffs, and they were all really upset. They were sitting in the locker room, and a rat came across running through the dressing room, and a player two-handed clubbed this rat to death in front of like everyone.
What?
And the story circulated, and then fans would throw rats onto the fake plastic rats onto the ice. And that was just their identity. That was just it. Whenever they'd win games, rats would be thrown on the ice, and that was just their thing. And so now this whole story is circulating of like Mike McCarthy smashing watermelons. Like, are we going to see fans bringing watermelons to game, smashing them at the tailgates? Like, that's probably going to be a thing, and that's probably going to start a part of their identity. So I think it's for as hokey as it is, there's a level of brilliance to it that I actually definitely appreciate.
That's super interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, that it could be incorporated with their identity. And it's kind of sad that Mike McCarthy is the one to usher this in, because I have no love for Mike McCarthy. He's a bit of a tool, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's an interesting take on it. Do you have any other details towards that?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, I had a 5-game parlay, and the Vikings that were supposed to absolutely dominate the Cowboys lost, which totally screwed up my parlay. So, the Vikings, other than Dalvin Cook, I'm mad at, and I hope they hear that I'm mad at them. But anyways, there's like personal little. Hopefully, it turns into a superstition. And especially because I think that was to help the defense out. Like, if anyone remembers the Legion of Boom in Seattle, and for those who don't know, in the mid-2010s, the defense of the Seattle Seahawks was called the Legion of Boom, a little play on words of the Legion of Doom, and they were just a formidable defense. They're like the best in the league. They were the best. And now, obviously, for those who understand who the Seahawks are probably one of the worst.
Yeah, we'll see about that. And another interesting thing that's going on, or just development, I guess, is that the Ravens-Steelers game is postponed for Thanksgiving due to COVID. And players on the Steelers side are not pumped about that. Juju Smith-Schuster tweeted, "First, the NFL takes away our bye week because another team can't get their COVID situation together. Now they take away our Thanksgiving primetime game for the same reason. SMH, shake my head." Looks like we got Chase Claypool here. What a joke. Eric Ebron, "I'm not going to lie, at NFL, this is BS." I can understand why they're choked. I assume that the Steelers are following the protocol because this is based on the Ravens testing positive. I think it was 2 of their running backs are in COVID protocol right now. So, yeah, absolutely, I would be choked. And they're doing so well this year that this would be the time to really showcase it. And now they're just going to be a regular old Sunday game. So what are your thoughts on that?
Um, okay, sorry. SMH, is that so much hate or shake my head?
Shake my head.
I thought it was always so much hate.
Really?
This is the first. You shattered my world because
I'm
forever I've only associated SMH with so much hate.
You're like one of those people that does like LOL is lots of love, and they're like, sorry, grandma just died, LOL. Like, I want to know how you've misused that or misinterpreted that in the past, but yeah,
Socially irrelevant. I just don't get it. I'm not
yeah.
there.
Um, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So, I mean, a curse for the Steelers, but a blessing for the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter what anyone says, the Ravens lost a few. They're not looking great. They're not what everyone hyped them up to be this year. But they're still the Ravens. They're I see them as a good team, and I just know that a divisional game like this is going to be huge, and this is going to give them the time to literally get their stuff together to like try and beat the only undefeated team in the league. And I think
Well,
they could do it.
they already tried and they already failed. So that's another component. Is they just played each other a few weeks ago and it didn't go the Ravens' way. So this could be another opportunity for them to redeem themselves. But from the Steelers' perspective, they're like, "Are you kidding me? Like we've done nothing wrong. If they have people in COVID protocol, then they just can't play." That's what happens in other in other teams. If you have a player that has been exposed or whatever, like you saw that with Jamal Williams, I guess, a few weeks ago with the Packers. Like he just couldn't play. So that's that. But it's an abundance of caution here. And then on to our last situation here is something that came up in the media. A really heartwarming story is that you see Marshawn Lynch over in Hawaii handing out 200 turkeys to a variety of people for Thanksgiving. No one is at all surprised about this because it is completely aligned with Marshawn's character. I was delighted to see this, and I'm just wondering, you probably have a close connection to Marshawn, given that you are and were a massive Seahawks fan. So, can you give us a little background on Marshawn before we hop into it?
Yeah, I think that's some freeway Rick Ross kind of move there. I think he's done this for a little while, but he'll go to the hood and he'll do that. Hood meaning somewhere in Oakland or wherever he's from.
And he like self-proclaimed that he's like, I'm going to the hood to hand out turkeys. Like that's another thing that was circulating this week is that Richard Sherman was asking him on the sideline, "Hey, what are you doing for the holidays?" He's like, "Holidays? I'm just trying to get through Thanksgiving. I'm going to the hood to hand out turkeys." And Richard Sherman's like, yeah, I'll come. So it seems like this is something that is a pattern for him and totally aligned with his character.
Yeah, and he just loves to give back to the community, and that's just one of the ways he gives back. The other way is through like moments and his highlight reel. It's insane.
For our listeners, can you just give a background on his like his position, I guess? So he was a running back for the Seattle Seahawks, and he left a while ago, went to the Raiders. Sorry, there I just did your job for you, but
no, it's all good.
But he's very well known, so most of you should know that.
Yeah, I guess for those who don't know Marshawn Lynch, as Lisa said, he's a running back, and most notably, he was a running back for the Seattle Seahawks. He started his career with Buffalo, was traded, had an illustrious career with Seattle, retired, finished, and then he came back to the Oakland Raiders. But he is hilarious. Some of the best post-game interviews that I've ever seen. And he's one of the most dominating running backs in the entire history of the NFL, I'd say. So, he was known for some antics, especially when it came to the interviews, though.
Definitely.
Yeah, some of the stuff like I didn't really care for because like I don't know Like I'm not too bothered on the whole media. Like players basically have a contract, or, they have a contract to talk to the media. But he was a totally different character.
Oh, they were handing out fines left, right, and center to him, and it did not seem like he cared at all. Like in 2011, he was fined $10,000. Wait, no, that was a different thing. Oh, I mean, that's a fine for him. He was fined $10,000 for wearing cleats with Skittles patterns on them, which is just adorable. But he also wasn't talking to the media at all in the 2013 season and was fined $50,000 for not doing press. And then the next year, he was fined $100,000 for not talking to the media. And then his games following that, he would just give one-word answers or like one phrase to every single question, like "thank you for your time," great question. Like he would just say the same thing over and over again because he had such an issue with talking to the media, I suppose. And I wonder why he made that choice, but I guess I can kind of understand it, especially if it's not a really good game. You don't want to ask all these repetitive questions or relive that situation. I don't know. So what are your thoughts on players talking to the media and the NFL kind of requiring that of them?
Yeah, like in the NFL, first off, if you ever watch an NHL interview in between periods at the end of games, it is so boring and benign.
Yeah,
and,
like
and
we
lame.
we needed to score more goals. We did not score as many goals as they did. We did not score as many points. Like every question is so funny.
Yeah, and the thing is that there's a kind of a code with the NHL. There's players, not so much a script. It's just they all sound the same. There's not as much of a diverse personality scale as the NFL does. So you have someone like Marshawn Lynch who comes through, and like he does not like talking to the media. He ends up just being super cheeky, giving one-word answers. Some players are just funny, and that's what they're allowed to do that. I think it's totally fun, and especially when you're not only just a player for the team and you're not being paid to play for the team, but now you are an active member of the community. And the tertiary things you have to do with the team, like in terms of giving back and being a stand-up person for your community and a role model for people, showing up like that that's a part of the game.
For sure. Yeah, and they're not hiring you as just a running back. You're part of the franchise. They're trying to sell tickets, they're trying to sell jerseys. They need you to go in and be that franchise player that they want you to be. And like the least you can do is answer a few of those questions, but I think it just kind of added to the overall majesty of him because it just is so spot on for him to not care and to take these fines and just be like, oh, whatever. It really adds up for him. But he indeed had a really impressive career as a running back. As of 2020, he holds 18 Seattle running back records. He's been called beast mode since childhood just because they equated him to being a beast. Like he just bulldozes over people. Absolute mayhem on the field. He's fearless. And again, he had several relatives who played professional football, so he is from a football family. Football friends, football families, there you go. But his legacy is more so, I mean, in addition to being a phenomenal player, is just with so much the respect and reputation that he had amongst the league. He's just known for being beloved, for being super kind. It's been said that he literally gave Doug Baldwin his backpack just because Baldwin asked him where he got it and he liked it. So he's like, oh, well, you just take it. And then since then, he has started his own foundation called the Family First Foundation. And the sole purpose is giving back to the community, and which is Oakland. Like he's always talking about giving back to his community. Earlier when he was with the Raiders, he hosted 25 kids to fly to London to watch the Raiders play the Seattle Seahawks at Wembley Stadium. Like he has a Family First football camp that services over 1,000 kids. it's spectacular that that's his focus, is to give back, and it's really admirable. So yeah, do you have any thoughts on that?
That's just beast mode. And I was actually at that NFL game. I saw the Raiders play the Seahawks when I visited London.
Oh, sick.
I went to Wembley. It was awesome, and it was really funny talking to British people about fantasy football because you just never would make the connection. But anyways, I digress. That's, I guess, just to finish on Marshawn. Like, one of my favorite quotes from him is, "You don't feel beast mode. Beast mode feels you."
Whoa, that's so meta.
That is very meta.
Yeah, he is a fantastic, just like face of the NFL, I would say. He's beloved by all, and it was sad to see him go. But I mean, he was in a rough role as running back, and he's got a life to live and love to give. So he's taken a break. He's in Hawaii, obviously, having a great time there, connecting with others and doing what he loves, which is handing out turkeys on Thanksgiving. So bless him. That's fantastic. But that pretty much covers all that we had. It was kind of a light week in terms of news and drama there. But do you have anything to add before we sign off here?
No, we usually, I think last week we talked a little bit about doing a little bit more of a statistics and a fantasy and a betting one, and we just really haven't kind of had the time to get that sorted out. So that's just put on the back burner for now, and we're gonna figure out when we're gonna come out with that one. But other than that, like, we covered everything that's coming up. It's gonna be interesting. Hey, what are you thankful for American Thanksgiving?
Oh, me. Oh my gosh. That's a really good question. I'm thankful that I'm still getting paid right now. That's really nice. I'm thankful that I get to hang out with my buddy Z here. And yeah, I can't really complain. Like, things aren't great right now, but they really could be worse. So I'm just thankful that things are okay when so much of the world is not okay, you know? What about you?
Yeah. That's a good way to be. Yeah, no, I'm thankful my family is patient with me, and I'm still they still accept and love me.
What have you done lately?
I don't even know. You'll probably hear something from them. But
great.
no, I'm just thankful that I'm in a very good spot and that I'm working really hard and I'm inching closer to my commerce degree. So
yeah, way to go.
There you go.
Well, I guess we'll sign off here, but I hope everyone enjoyed this, and we will get back to it next week with all the hot drama and so on from the NFL. So I will talk to you later, Z.
Bye. Oh, also listen to the Bachelorette podcast.
Recording now. Okay, bye.